So wrapping up the week, we're going to finish up with our last system of the week. This is the nervous system. The nervous system is probably one of the most complicated systems that we have. And I shouldn't use the term complicated, I'll say complex, because it's very much responsible for this term here that's in red, homeostasis. So if you recall, homeostasis, I already warned you that this is a term that we're going to talk about a lot. And it's important to understand that everyone's level of homeostasis will vary. It is your body's way of creating balance, and it's creating balance within all of your body systems, trying to do it all at the same time. Your nervous system does control all of the other body systems, and it starts with the brain. So in looking at structures of the nervous system, we'll start with the brain and its four components here. It is divided into parts. So you have the frontal lobe, which is in the front portion of the brain, parietal, working its way back, occipital, all the way in the rear of the brain, and then temporal is located on the sides. You have a division of a right and left hemisphere. And the brain has a huge responsibility in coordinating almost everything your body does. Those voluntary and involuntary movements that we talk about in all the body systems, well, they start here within the nervous system. It controls center for the body. It controls thought, emotion, and judgment. And the largest part of the brain is called the cerebrum. Now, in structures of the brain, also here in this slide, it shows you different components of the brain and what they're responsible for. So if you're looking at this and thinking of the external structures, you can look at if the brain were to be affected here, let's just say in the frontal lobe, maybe we had some damage here, an aneurysm or a tumor of some sort, depending on where it's located is going to determine what will be affected. So within the frontal lobe here, this controls motor control, problem solving, and speech production. So it wouldn't be uncommon to think that if this portion of the brain were affected, we might see some levels of the speech also affected. Parietal lobe controls touch, body orientation, and sensory discrimination. Occipital lobe, working your way towards the back. That's where your sight is controlled. Visual reception as well as visual interpretation, taking insight and interpreting what it is that the vision has taken in. That happens in the occipital lobe. On the side, this is your memory, temporal, your memory, your language comprehension, and auditory processing. And all the way down to the cerebellum. That's going to be your balance and coordination. And the brainstem even has work to do. It is responsible for those involuntary responses that I've mentioned before. So the brain is an amazing structure that has a ton of responsibility. And even the slightest injury could cause huge problems for someone. Also part of the structure of the nervous system is the spinal cord. And notice the spinal cord starts at the base of the brain and works its way all the way down through what's called the lumbar vertebrae. The spinal cord does assist with what's called nerve impulses. And those nerve impulses are coming from the brain and also to the brain. So a lot of what we experience in touch and feeling is controlled throughout the spinal cord. On the end of the spinal cord, you have nerve roots. And then extending out, we have what's called peripheral nerves. Now, the brain has its own protective cover. It's in 3 layers. So you have the dura mater, arachnoid matter, and the pia mater, all of which are layers composed of, or layers that work their way out from the brain in order to be able to cover and protect the contents of the brain. Cerebral spinal fluid is also within these layers, and it allows for the brain to float and hopefully protect the brain from injury. So the 3 layers, along with the fluid, all put in place to cover, protect the brain as well as the spinal cord.